Coming up on today's Unscripted Faith, are you ready to uncover hidden truths about America's founding? We're diving into The American Miracle, a groundbreaking documentary that reveals evidence of God's hand in shaping our nation's history.
That's right. Director Tim Mahoney and his team of filmmakers, Douglas Maddox and Ralph Oxtros, have spent years traveling the globe, interviewing top scholars and uncovering astonishing discoveries that could change everything you thought you knew about America's beginnings.
Don't miss this eye-opening conversation on how history, faith, and miracles intertwine right here on Unscripted Faith. Here we go! Welcome everyone to Unscripted Faith. We are so excited you joined us, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed today. We're talking about God's divine intervention in America's founding.
You know, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be a lot of fun, and you're going to find out about a really great movie that's going to be coming our way very soon.
Yes. We love entertainment here.
We love it. We love it. We love it.
So to be able to watch one on our history, let's go. What if the moments that shaped our nation weren't just historical coincidences, but divine appointments? Today's guests believe they have the evidence to prove it. Filmmakers Timothy Mahoney, Douglas Maddox, and Ralph Oxtros are here to talk about The American Miracle, a powerful new film that explores the idea that God's fingerprints are all over America's founding. Before we dive into their incredible journey of discovery, here's a look at the trailer that's getting people across the country talking. Take a look.
I came to persuade you to avoid these dangers.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
If our union is to hold together, something must be done.
He will become founder of a mighty empire.
The fate of unborn millions now depends under God upon the conduct and courage of this army.
Various founders talked about this providential experiment that God had ordained and intervened at this unique moment in American history to make all of this happen.
Most of them believed that there were no accidents in history.
That hope for liberty was the light that under God, He would lead them.
All eyes are open or opening to the rights of man.
Am I all mankind?
We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings, that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it.
It cannot be denied that with America and in America, a new era commences in human affairs.
America is something that I hold in my heart.
Americans of today should regain our bearings, that our nation is no accident.
What an incredible movie. Today joining us, we have Doug, Tim, and Ralph. And just for our viewers to know, closest to me we have Doug, then we have Tim, then we have Ralph. And we are so excited to have the filmmakers of this movie join us. What an incredible opportunity to sit down and talk with you all. So let's hop right in. And I'll start with you, Ralph, on this, since you're here in the studio. At the very beginning of that, or at very end of that trailer, they say there are no accidents. Speak with us, and each of you can take your turn on sharing about the divine providence of God in creating this film and bringing you three together.
Well, that's not really a created tagline in the sense that something we made up out of fantasy. It's the actual truth. Most of the founding fathers referred to the divine hand of providence, and they felt that divine providence was directly involved in shaping those early days and early events. So hence our tagline, our nation is no accident.
Wow. Now, share, Tim, I know that you said that there were quite a few divine providence that brought this whole thing together. So share with us from your perspective how this came together by God's divine hand.
Well, I could see that this film was an important film, first of all, for this time in our history. I think that the nation was very divided during the American Revolution. As far as it wasn't even a nation, it was just states, and there's big states and there are small states, and they all had their different agendas. And there was the issue of slavery. And if we look at the whole question of the where we are today as a nation, there's a providential, I think, reminder that, I mean, in the sense that God has been acting in our nation in the past. And I think that many would say, well, it seems like he's working in our nation in the future right now. And I believe that this film is going to remind people of a forgotten story of how all these encouraging, miraculous events that saved George Washington and the Continental Army, with the British. And this is a drama that has documentary parts to it. And we're dramatizing and showing all these, literally God's presence, which was providence. The word providence means the presence of God during this encounter with the British, and how God provided a way for them to escape danger many times. And we even had it there's many ways, we'll talk about it later on, but how God's presence was in the making of this film. So we think this film is incredibly important and timely for today.
Come on.
Tim, to follow up with that, why would, or maybe any one of you can answer this, maybe one of you is better than the other, why this film and why now?
Well, I think that we're coming up to the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so that's in 2026. So right now we're focused on 250 years, and we're going to be talking a lot about this. And there might be some narratives that are going to be out there. We talk about story. There's going to be narratives that America isn't a good place. But this film is going to show you that God's hand was on the founding of this nation. And I believe he wanted this nation to become a light in many ways to the rest of the world. And I think that it has been.
I love that. And I do think that, right, there is so much within history. There's so many different moments that we could look upon and see God's hand. But to know that America was founded, just like he raises up a man in an hour, he raises up a nation. So Doug, share with me, what was one of the most fascinating or surprising facts you found out in learning about the nation's founding?
I'd love to, yeah. And in doing that, I just want to say how God brought the three of us together. There was no doubt in my mind how we were meant to make this movie together. And it was inspired by Michael Medved. He has an amazing providential story with being an immigrant, and his parents and grandparents said, don't forget to be thankful for America, what it's given us. And he wrote this book out of that inspiration. And so he's a New York Times best-selling author, been around forever in the entertainment world. And so we're just really pleased to bring The American Miracle by the same title, the book, to the motion picture, The American Miracle. For me, I would say that George Washington has always been a hero of mine. He's been quiet in his faith through our introduction to history in the public school system. But going through this and in my Christian faith, I was blown away that it was elevated to such a level of so many assassination attempts, so many different times he should have died in battle. And for some reason, except for providence, God meant for him to lead this country in the beginnings of its forming.
Wow.
Well, you know, I noticed a person that was in there, Nicole C. Mullen, who's been on our show here before, and you guys have quite a few different stars that are in there. How did you guys go about picking the people that you had in this movie?
You know, again, I think it was providential. We did the casting. We worked with a casting agent, and there were particular people who we have worked with in the past, people whose work we admired, people whom we knew would be moved to be a part of this film. We have Pat Boone in the movie playing the aging Thomas Jefferson. You know, one thing I learned about Pat Boone was back in his day, Elvis Presley opened for him That's the kind of star that Pat Boone was. So we were blessed to have Pat Boone. We were blessed to have Kevin Sorbo. Kevin and Sam Sorbo actually are who introduced me originally to Tim years ago when I was producing a movie called Against the Tide. And Tim and I became fast friends, and then Doug came and joined us, and sort of that's a little bit of the story of how we got to be in Heroic Pictures.
Wow.
And what are the, real quickly, what your three different, you're all executive producers, but what were your roles too?
Well, I mean, I can kick it off. I was one of the three executive producers, so the three of us made all the decisions sort of from beginning to end on the production process and all the major decisions. But then I also produced all the interview segments of the scholars that are in the movie, and I also co-produced the soundtrack with the symphony orchestra that we recorded in Europe last fall. And then Tim and Doug can give their backgrounds.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, Tim, of course, you know him as the director. He did a phenomenal job bringing this creative vision to life. I was the producer. What a producer does is on the narrative side, comes in, follows all the direction from the director, the executive producers, and brings all the cast and crew. And we were just blown away by how many of the cast and crew were just changed by being a part of this movie. I mean, we had one guy come from Hawaii who was in those horrific fires, and he thought, oh, this is just a job. But he came on, and we did daily prayer, and we thank God for his presence on our set in the telling and the history. And by the end, he's like, I had no idea I was going to be ministered to while we made this movie. So that's a real delight to me. I've been producing and directing motion pictures for over 25 years, and that's been my calling. If God can use us and change lives during the filming and then change lives during the showing of the film, I'm just all about that. So I'm so grateful to Tim and Ralph and our team being able to do that so openly.
Incredible.
And Tim, do you want to share anything else?
I think that Nicole C. Mullen, I've known her, and what had happened was I was actually woke up, I was praying about this, and God works in my life sometimes in the morning when I wake up, I have a thought, and it was like Nicole C. Mullen should play Mumbet Freeman. And I go, I have no idea if she can even act. Well, she's an amazing actress. Yes. Obviously, she's skilled. She's an incredibly skilled woman as a singer, and she actually had written a song previously called Freedom, and she's in the movie performing that as well. So that's just an example. I think the Holy Spirit was guiding a lot of different decisions, and the people that participated felt that way as well, that the presence of God was even in the whole casting and location process.
Very nice.
I got to say, James Arnold Taylor was a big find for us. So when I worked with our casting manager, director, she goes, where do we start, Doug? And I said, why don't you go through the films that I've done, Tim's done, and Ralph's done, and then let's go and then spread the net out from there. And one of the projects had James Arnold Taylor in it from one of the things that I work with, The Garden. And it was amazing how he was so open to this. And he's known as Star Wars, Clone Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi voice. And he's been a voice actor, very well known for 30 years in that world. Flintstones, How to Train Your Dragon, on and on. And he basically is now going into live acting. And so he does a phenomenal job playing Webster, and the orator. In the trailer, you heard him speak, and it's always gripping when I hear him perform. So just so
Daniel
grateful
Webster.
to have him and everybody else.
Well, I want to get into the soundtrack when we come back with you. You have a very unique story concerning that. Ladies and gentlemen, more with Douglas, Tim, and Ralph right after this.
None of us knows how long we have on this earth. What if we intentionally view each today as a gift from God? What if we considered today as a verb, an action that we can use right now? In my book, Today is a Verb, Open the Gift of Now in Every Ordinary Moment, I encourage my readers to grab hold of God's endless gift of time and make the most of every moment. We can choose each day to pray, to serve, to hope, to overcome. The possibilities are endless. Today as a Verb can be read as a 30-day devotional or as a way to revolutionize your life. Request your copy when you give this month to Cornerstone Television by calling 888-665-4483 or donate online at ctvn.org/donate.
Well, we're back with executive producers Timothy Mahoney, Douglas Maddox, and Ralph Oxtros, the filmmakers behind The American Miracle. You know, I've heard you guys talking a lot about the providence, and I can see that scarlet thread running through everything you've been talking about. But it's very unique. Your last name, Oxtros, is Latvian, and you said how you have a big orchestra that recorded in Latvia the soundtrack for The American Miracle.
We worked with a composer, a veteran Hollywood composer, Lolita Ritmanis, who is an Emmy Award winner, a Grammy Award winner, a sort of a Hollywood mainstay. She composed the soundtrack, and we took the score to Latvia, where we had the Liepājas Symphony Orchestra, a professional, world-class, old European orchestra, record 90 minutes of new music for this, along with the professional choir in Latvia. And it adds such an additional great depth to the experience of the movie. You know, the music almost becomes another character in the movie and helps us understand how to interpret and how to perceive certain things we're seeing on set. So people have been commenting in the preview screenings about how lush and rich and beautiful and epic the score is. And that's what helps make this such a big movie.
Yeah, well, and even just seeing the trailer, the clips, like the colors in it and everything just seems so vibrant. Can you share with us, Tim, a little bit about your direction in finding the locations and how you wanted to set up each of those scenes?
I think that the challenge for independent filmmakers, which we are, is to find the right location so that you can tell the story. And with Doug's help, he did an awful lot of work working with, well, let's say Mount Vernon. We actually filmed you couldn't get more original than that, at Mount Vernon and inside the house. We were given the privilege of actually filming inside that house. Faneuil Hall, where Daniel Webster's speeches, we filmed there. We filmed at battle site scenes, the actual scenes. So we had a historian, Mr. Gallagher came. He was a part of our history, making sure that we were completely, James Gallagher was guiding us along. He had worked on John Adams and Turn and worked with Spielberg on the Lincoln film. So he was watching and helping to guide us so that all the costumes, and then Doug was working on locations, everything was historically accurate. And James said, you're one of the first directors that really, wanted to make it all correct, So that's basically what we did. This is a very accurate, historically accurate film, telling the past and the history of God's providential hand on America.
Well, when I think about what you're saying there, the Bible says if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? There's been a lot of attack, I've heard it at least, about the founding, what really happened in the founding of America. Doug, in your estimation, what do you believe is the biggest misconception about how America was formed that will be illustrated through the movie?
I would say Tim mentioned slavery earlier, and that was a problem. There was a huge problem in the southern states. And coming into this movie, we thought as a team, what do we do? And we asked the Lord. And we were able to find Mom Bet's story, and we were able to find the first Black Minuteman. So two really important stories. The first freed Black woman in Massachusetts during the Revolutionary War time, and the first Black Minuteman. Blacks and whites fought together because George Washington, penned it into being, and they hadn't fought since. So we went off course again, and now we've come back again to our founding, and really, it's important to understand these stories. I think the 3/5 rule it is really hard to understand. We cover that in this film as well. So there's a lot to dive into. So get ready for your, teaching and learning hats when you watch our film. It's entertaining, but there's a whole lot to discover.
But the bottom line is it's not so much a Christian film, and we get asked this all the time. It's not a Christian film as much as it is a historically accurate film in which we don't cover up and conceal the Christian and theistic aspects of what really happened. And that's the reason we have the scholarly interviews in them, because otherwise, if this was just a dramatic motion picture, which it was originally supposed to be, we were afraid that people wouldn't believe it. They would think that we turned all these dead old white guys into evangelical Christians, which a lot of them weren't. So that's why these world-class scholars, Pulitzer Prize-winning historians and authors, are in the movie to lend credence to the fact that these things actually happened. This is the truth.
Wow.
And we were very careful about making sure that we told the truth.
Tim, before I come to you, real quickly though, I want to give a shout out to you guys. I mean, 3 white men talking about slavery. No, that's going to be huge. I hear a lot of African Americans very frustrated in this day and hour because they feel like, oh, these guys are all perfect. Everything was perfect, and not identifying the fact that slavery was a major part that has been taken out of. And I love what you're saying about historically being accurate. So I wanted to say thank you as an African American man. Just for bringing that out, and I believe it's going to speak to a lot of people. So, Tim, I wanted to throw that over to you now.
Yeah, I think you're correct. The big takeaway for me is that they fought this battle, and then they were left with, okay, now how do we organize ourselves? And the last part of the film is about the Constitution and the wrestling with that. So in this movie, you're going to see the battle, God's providence in many situations in the battles, how God saved the nation. And then you're going to see also the battle with slavery and what happened. That's why Peter Salem, who's played by Cameron Arnett, and we have Nicole C. Mullins playing Elizabeth Freeman. The battle of slavery is in this film as well. And then the battle for the Constitution and how we're going to constitute ourselves. And as Ralph said, we have these world-class historians that are saying, yes, this really happened. And what we're going to see is a group of men that God called together at a very specific time, and he's given us this document. And at the basis of it, I think, is that God has given men rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he wants us to be free. And I think that's why this film is so important. It's a remembrance of what we all were about in the beginning. We haven't been perfect, not because the idea wasn't right, but because people just didn't follow the right idea.
So good. In our last few seconds that we have here, what is it you want the audience to walk away from with this film? Go ahead, Doug.
Be inspired. You know, the title, The American Miracle, it was a miracle. The United States should not be formed. I mean, the largest empire of the known world, fighting a little series of colonies, basically, that's just unbelievable. And God raised up George Washington to lead this band of brothers and sisters, and we became the United States of America. It's a miraculous story. It truly is. So be inspired and be inspirational today. Take that out into your public and family life. You know, be proud and be thankful. Know your roots, know your Bible. You know, it's like the Jewish heritage that we have, the Christian heritage that we move forward with. You know, the United States is a part of that, and we need to recognize it.
Ralph, we got about 30 seconds left. I want you to mention to everybody, how can we go about getting tickets and where can we find this?
The best place to get all that information is our website, AmericanMiracleMovie.com. AmericanMiracleMovie.com. And also, just to finish up what Doug was saying, our tagline, "Our nation is no accident," that implies that there is agency and purpose in place here, not just a haphazard flow of history. And if there's agency and purpose, that means that we bear a responsibility to carry that forward and to perpetuate that. And that's one of the main things that we also want people to come away with. We're not just bystanders and onlookers. We're an active part of this, and it's our responsibility to carry it forward.
American Miracle, Doug, Tim, Ralph, thank you so much. Looking forward to June 9th to go check it out. Thank you for coming by here on Unscripted Faith.
Thanks for having us.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go and get your ticket in advance. I'm going to get mine. I'm sure Angela's going to get hers, and it's going to be great. But now, let's go to Tom for our brand new Spirit Walk.
Did you ever
ever pray a prayer that you didn't have much faith for? Boy, I know I have, where you're just like, God, I know I'm a Christian, I need to pray, and I need to believe, and I need to trust, but I don't have a lot of faith right now, but I'm desperate. And that's okay. God can respond to a desperate prayer, even though we should have faith when we pray. But I'm encouraged by sometimes the people that are in the Bible are heroes of the faith. A lot of times they didn't have all the faith in the world either. In fact, let's look at the situation of Peter after he got arrested. So this is what it says in Acts chapter 12. It says, the church went into a season of intense intercession, asking God to free him. Now I can just imagine these first century Christians were praying with a lot of fervor, praying and believing continually that God is going to set Peter free. They were probably proclaiming that and binding spirits and everything else and proclaiming freedom for him. And an interesting thing happened. While they're in the midst of this intense session of prayer, there's a knock at the door. And I think they feel a little agitated by this. And so they have a servant girl named Rhoda. They say, Rhoda, go answer the door. So Rhoda goes out, opens the door, and there's Peter standing outside the gate, okay? And she runs back to them. She's so excited. She leaves Peter, doesn't even let him in. She leaves Peter outside the gate. She comes running back in and goes, it's Peter. Peter's outside. And these faith-filled Christian people praying and interceding say, if it's not, you're seeing things. They didn't have faith. They're asking for the very thing they're asking for is being answered, and they don't have faith for it. Finally, Rhoda's like carrying on so much. At one point, they say, well, it must be his angel. Again, not having faith that their prayers are answered. Finally, they go out, they see that it's Peter, and they let him in, and they realize that here is God answering their prayers. It doesn't matter how much we shout. It doesn't matter how much we carry on. What matters in prayer is that we just trust God. You remember when he said, all we need is a mustard seed? That comforts me a lot, because all I've got sometimes is a mustard seed, sometimes an extra small mustard seed. But God can respond to that. God is the God of the impossible, and all he needs is a little bit of faith from us.
Well, I'm here holding the book here. It's a donor-based book. If you go to their webpage and donate towards the movie to help them get this out, this will be available to you. So go and check it out. And it's basically around the movie, so it goes right along with it. Yeah. Get a great companion. And you know what? This was really good. I think it's cool. Historically accurate documentary about the rise of America. I think it's going to be outstanding. June 9th, about a week before Father's Day.
Yeah, and then it gets into their personal stories, how God led them. They did something phenomenal. They founded America, but at the time that they did it, they didn't know what it was going to be. Yeah. So I'm excited to hear their personal testimony of where God met them, how he opened doors and closed doors.
And there's so much going on about how America came into existence.
Yes.
Some people coming against. I love the fact
yes.
That they're dealing with the slavery piece, which I think a lot of people need to hear about. Yeah. And it's just going to be really good to see this movie. Yeah,
it doesn't mean that the founding was perfect, but we're going to get to hear the perfect God behind it all.
That's right. That's right. So go June 9th, The American Miracle. Ladies and gentlemen, God has put his hands upon America. We need to know the foundation, because if we want to know where we're going, we got to find out where we came from.
Cornerstone Television wishes to thank all our faithful viewers whose consistent prayers and financial support have made this program possible.